Hi, everybody. So, I found this article, and it's titled Americans' Hearts Bleed for Ukrainians, but not Latin Americans. Meh. Okay. And I'm going to read along with it and then just do what I always do and interrupt and say my piece in between. And yeah. So it appears that not all asylum seekers are created equal in the eyes of many Americans. First, the good news. The Biden administration took a step forward in welcoming Ukrainian refugees last week. The Uniting for Ukraine initiative will provide Ukrainians fleeing the war in their country a streamlined pathway to come to the United States. There is nearly universal support for welcoming Ukrainians in the United States, and it is laudable that the administration took this step. The global community has been horrified by the bloodbath in Ukraine. According to reports, Russian soldiers have raped dozens of women, many of whom did not survive. Russian forces are suspected to have executed thousands of Ukrainians and buried them in mass graves outside Mariupol. Yet, as leaders of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops have noted, Uniting for Ukraine does not include a pathway to legal status or authorization for basic services. They also note that in a perplexing wrinkle to the program, Ukrainians seeking asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border were turned away after April 25th. Being from Latin America, I cannot help but see the stark contrast between how this country is now treating Ukrainian refugees and how it treats Latin Americans. Saving Ukrainians must be a priority. Frankly, defending human life should be a priority, period. I hope that this is just the beginning of the United States stepping up to help. But being from Latin America, I cannot help to see the stark contrast between how this country is now treating Ukrainian refugees and how it treats Latin Americans who have been fleeing rape and violence for decades. Why are Americans so numb to the suffering of the poor and marginalized in our own hemisphere? A few years ago, Selena Guadalupe Valadares told me why she fled El Salvador. When she was 14, members of local gangs started talking to her and telling her that they were in love with her. One gang member asked another girl she knew to be his girlfriend. When that girl refused, gang members kidnapped her, raped her, and killed her and spread her body parts around a field of mango trees, Miss Valadares told me. Coming to the United States was the only way she could save herself. I mean, that story is obviously it's very common. You know, people want to say that those types of things aren't common, but they are very common. Why are Americans so numb to the suffering of the poor and marginalized in our own hemisphere? I will never forget meeting a man in Nuevo Laredo, the Mexican border town just south of Texas. He fled El Salvador because he had the audacity to report gang activity to the police. His son had disappeared, and he looked for him for years. He assumed he was dead. The man told me he had a video of gang members discarding body parts into a well and shared it with local authorities. After he made his report, the police official asked him, this means you have to leave the country. They will come after you. The corruption there is deep. When he and his family fled to Mexico, the gang found them there, so they headed to the U.S. border where I met them. I have no idea if they made it to the United States. Why do people treat people from Ukraine and people from Latin America so differently? Is it because we do not have a singular person to blame on the ongoing rape, murder, and torture? Do we not consider gangs unjust aggressors? Do Americans care about Ukrainians because they recognize them as victims of Vladimir Putin? Do Americans need a big baddie to hate before we take action on behalf of the poor and persecuted? In other words, do Americans care about Ukrainians because they recognize them as victims of Vladimir Putin? Do Americans need a big baddie to hate from blah, 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 blah? That's what I just read. We certainly seem more outraged at how the nation treats Latin America asylum seekers when we had Donald J. Trump to blame, or at least we pretended to be outraged. Are we really giving a pass to Biden administration's meager efforts to improve the immigration system because, well, at least he's better than Trump? It took the Biden administration over a year to attempt to cancel Title 42, a Trump-era measure that restricted asylum on the U.S. border, ostensibly to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It was meant to end this May, but the measure's termination is currently being blocked in court. A year might not seem like a long time for some, but just think about what it's been like for those families stuck on the border, most of them in a foreign land. These are real people too, and their suffering is as real as Ukrainian suffering. Perhaps we are more welcoming of Ukrainians because they are white. Do most Americans deep down in their psyche believe that what Mr. Trump said about people from shithole countries, does that shoe fit? Americans are acting as if the lives of white Ukrainians are more valuable than the lives of brown Latin Americans, and that is unacceptable. Saying that most Americans are racist is likely a premature and perhaps overgeneralized explanation. Yet, we can certainly know how the media coverage of the Ukrainian conflict has been steady stream compared to the patchy reports of violence in Latin America. I was going to wait till the end to finish reading this because this is actually my second go around of this video. But this author irritates the fuck out of me, okay? Because he just seems so disingenuous. I'm sorry. So, one of the things that I know that I'm kind of I'm at this point right here, okay, and I'm just gonna kind of like leave this little thingy right here. I always question the media. I'm not one of those people that just believes everything that I hear. That's just not me. That's never been me. I barely believe what people say, just regular people, okay? I just don't, okay? So, that goes for the media as well. I'm always questioning the media. I'm always somebody that's always questioning the media. However, this is not me defending the media or what I'm about to say, but us as people who are Latin, I've heard us bitch and complain so much when it comes to when this country reports on Latin America and how we bitch and complain about how, we're racist for reporting on this or reporting on that or reporting on the negative aspects of things that happen in our countries, right? So which one is it? Which one is it? That's number one. Number two, this guy's full of shit. Because most Latin people do not give a fuck about what happens to the women and children in Latin America, nor do they give a shit about what happens to the Latin American, women who live here in the States. They just don't give a fuck. Okay? They don't. Point blank, period. Because these women and children are getting slaughtered left and right, especially in Latin America, all the time. You talk about it, and then you got Latin people that want to debunk it and argue against it and say it doesn't happen that much and that the media blows it out of proportion. But yet, then you have somebody like this that's on the other hand that's saying the exact opposite, and how what the United States speaks on is how the media coverage of the Ukrainian conflict has been a steady stream compared to the quote-unquote patchy reports of violence in Latin America. Which one is it? Do you want our media to speak about these things or not? And whose responsibility? It's the media's responsibility, or is it Latin Americans people's responsibility? Is it our responsibility to care about us enough to be like, hey, media, pay attention to what's going on in our fucking countries? And then we can't have the very same Latin people from our country say, hey, no, don't talk about us. It's making us look bad, and that's racist. Which one is it? Because to me, this guy's goal for this article has nothing to do with a care of the women and children in Latin America. All right? He's full of shit, this dude. Okay, so that is no surprise. Ratings are ratings after all. Ukraine is a compelling David versus Goliath story featuring America's Cold War foe. That's more the outbreak of nuclear war, which may be an unlikely threat, nevertheless would impact every human being on Earth. So maybe it's a combination of factors. Mr. Putin and Russia as identical foes, the onslaught of pro-Ukraine media coverage, the threat of nuclear fallout, and yes, race. That's what this guy cares about. That was his intention for this article. That and that alone, and that's what he cares about more than anything. Not what's going on with the women and children in Latin America. Guaranteed. None of this is meant to take away from the suffering in Ukraine. We must fulfill and go beyond the promises of uniting for Ukraine. Furthermore, we must, as editors of America recently argued, demand that Congress pass the Afghan Adjustment Act, which would grant a more permanent legal status to refugees from Afghanistan following the U.S. withdrawal from that country last year. But our increasingly generous response to the plight of Ukrainians does not raise the question, why are Americans so quick to forget or perhaps ignore the dire poverty, horrific violence, and rape of children in Latin America? Me, among those who believe it is paramount to address the root cause of migration. Most people I have interviewed tell me they would have preferred to stay in their home country but felt forced to leave. But addressing root causes takes time and commitments from wealthier nations to help. In the meantime, Americans are acting as if the lives of white Ukrainians are more valuable than the lives of brown Latin Americans, and that is unacceptable. You tell it, my fellow white passing Latin dude with the same probably skin color and hair color. I might be like a shade darker than this dude, but we have the same hair color. That's like my natural hair color. All right? You tell it, dude. I think you probably go home at the end of the day to your, huge ass loft somewhere in the city and fucking your giant house somewhere in the suburbs. And that's what you do. You just go, you're just talking this shit. And in the end, what I think you cared more about is the whole race thing. And is it because they care about more, the Ukrainians because they're white, and they don't care about Latin Americans because they're brown? Why do we worry so much about who white people care about? Meanwhile, we don't really give a shit about this stuff that happens in Latin America like that. We full of shit. And I'm not just talking about this guy. I'm talking about, like, the majority of us. We just talk a lot of shit is what we do. Things sound good. The arguments sound great. Oh, yes, you're speaking that truth. You're speaking that truth. But yet these women and these children are getting killed left and right every single day. And it's just not stopping, and it's just getting worse. Because we'll have people say that we want the media to speak about these things. And I agree. I think the media should speak about those things. I am one of those people that says, yes, our media should be reporting on those things. However, what we don't need is a bunch of idiot-ass other fellow Latinos, Hispanics, whatever you want to call us, agents of the fucking devil. Let me stop. Other fellow Latinos or whatever come along and go against the argument and be like, well, you're just reporting the negative aspects of our cultures and it's coming across as racist. So which one is it? Which one is racist? They talk about the bad stuff that's going on, the atrocities that are happening over there, the killings left and right of women and children. That's racist. But if they don't talk about it, that's also racist. Which fucking one is it, people? Which one? Because we talk a good talk. And I totally agree. I totally agree that we should be speaking about this stuff on the media. That there should be full, as much media coverage as they speak on Ukraine, that they should have the same type of coverage, if not more, when it comes to Latin America, because the stuff that's been going on in Latin America has been freaking like forever, right? But then we can't have our own people come and just totally do the opposite and say, don't talk about that. Do you want people to know about it, or do you not want people to know about it? Do you want people to know about the horrible things that are happening in these countries, so this way we can help them? This way the wealthier countries can quote unquote help them, like this man is saying. Or do you want the opposite, and for us to not quote unquote look bad? That's pretty much it. That's all I really got to say for this. It's stupid is what it is. And I just thought this was very interesting, and I just kind of think this guy is full of it. I think that a lot of these reporter people are full of it, because we talk a good game, but we don't all get on board, or the bulk of us don't get on board and be like, hey, look, media, can you talk about this instead of talking about In the Heights for like 5 weeks? No, we'll talk about In the Heights for 5 weeks. Now that's important. Now we have to talk about the representation in the Heights. And in Encanto is a cartoon. Oops. I still haven't seen it yet. Somebody asked me to see it. I asked my daughter if she wants to see it, and she has no desire to see it. I gotta try to have her watch it, so this way I can watch it. But anyhow, my point is that we'll spend forever and a day talking about retarded shit like that and promoting shit like that. But then when it comes to the atrocities that happen in these countries, the only time we're going to care is when we can put it in an article talking about, the racist aspect of this country. That's the time when we're going to care. And then we're not going to care. And then there's going to be another movie that comes out and lack of representation. And we'll talk about that for 5 weeks. When for 5 weeks have you heard people talking about the atrocities in Latin America? When has there been a time where there's been the length of time people talking about media representation, the length of time that it'll take with that there's been the same length of time talking about the atrocities in Latin America that's happening to these women and children? When has that happened? Absolutely not, and it's not going to, because Latin people care more about race. That's why. And the only time we care about stuff like this, about these atrocities, is when we can use it in an argument that, again, points out race or racism. And that's my spiel. I'll shut up now. All right, everybody. I hope you're all doing good. Thank you all for subscribing. I'm getting new subscribers. I don't know where this shit's coming from, but thank you. I appreciate it very much. I swear I'm actually a very lighthearted person. I might sound angry in some of these things. It's just because people annoy me sometimes. So it's like, I kind of let that steam out in these videos. What am I going to say, It is what it is. Anyhow, thank you all for subscribing. Thank you all for watching. Every time I get people viewing my shit, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe anybody watches my shit. Every single time, I swear. It's like anytime I get people watching, I'm like, who the hell is watching me and paying attention to shit that I say? You people are awesome. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go for now, and I'll see you all in my next one. Take it easy, guys. Bye.